Alright, I'm here today to talk about another cameo for use with Shang Tsung, and today's cameo is Ferra. You're going to be talking about all of her moves in detail. We're going to talk about when to use them, when not to use them, what they are good for, and what Shang can do with them specifically. So let's jump straight into it. I'm very excited about this cameo for Shang. I think she opens up Shang in all the ways that I wish Shang had been opened right from the launch of the game, and makes him a way better character than he has been up to this point. I'm hoping that she will elevate him above bottom 3, but it kind of depends the way that this update has shaped the rest of the meta and the rest of the characters, and the way that Ferra affects them too. So we shall see, but I think that she elevates Shang into a far more playable position, even if he's still low on the tier list. So, we're going to start with what I think is her simplest move, which is not saying much because I think all of her moves are relatively complex. That is Lackey Variation. As you can see, Lackey Variation is her down cameo, and it's an ambush. If it comes out, you can do it during other moves, and it can go into Lackey Dismissal, which is pressing down cameo again. You see she runs off and just gets off the screen. Or it can go into Let Me Ride, which is when she is near you, you can have her hop on your back and go into the Torr Stance. And we will go over the Torr Stance later. Just know that you can go into it from Lackey Variation. However, if you do it from Lackey Variation, there is still an animation, a 10-frame animation, where she hops on your back. So you do need to... You can't use this as an ambush to hop on your back. She has to hop on your back as its own separate animation. So, Lackey Variation, she comes out, she hangs out on the screen, and what she does depends on whether you're getting hit or your opponent is getting hit. However, the one thing that it will reliably do in all scenarios is eat some projectiles. Now, Ferra is very small, so projectiles that are highs will go right over her. We can demonstrate here with Liu Kang's Cosmic Flame that a high projectile is just going to go right on over. As you can see, went right over Ferra's head. Now, if we change that to be Enhanced Cosmic Flame, which is a mid, you can see Ferra just ate it. Now, interestingly, when a projectile hits Ferra and she runs off of the screen, she does not behave like any other cameo. So, she's going to get hit by Enhanced Cosmic Flame, and you're going to see I'm not pressing any buttons here except for block, and she came back. So she ran off briefly, and then came back to continue what she was doing on the sideline. So getting Ferra hit by projectiles is not a big deal at all, and it's not denying you access to the cameo, the way that most cameos get shut down when hit. So when she is in Lackey Variation, do not be afraid to have her catch a projectile for you. She is very good at it. And as you can see, she is taking only a fraction of the damage that I would take 120 damage off of that projectile normally. And Ferra took... What is this? Actually, it might be the same. Ferra is taking about 50 damage. So less than half. Which is normal for cameos getting hit. So, she is exceptionally good at eating projectiles, and you should be happy to have her sitting between you and your opponent all the time. And as Shang, having her sit here while I zone like this is beautiful. Especially because I know she'll just come back, even if she gets hit. And it doesn't delay her recharge or anything like that. So highly recommend for the projectile war to have Ferra eating the low and mid projectiles your opponent is able to throw at you. But what Lackey Variation actually does, and the reason that it's in the game, is that when it is active, as you hit your opponent, you will gain more super meter. So, we have Lackey Variation live, and we have no Lackey Variation. As you can see, we gain just a touch of meter when we do that. Change the settings so that it is more clear. Have it function as default. As you can see, we gain just a tiny little notch. If we do this, we gain a little bit more. Combos always give us meter. Now, we're going to call in Lackey variation, do the same combo. As you can see, I gained close to double the amount of super meter for doing that, as Ferra is cheering for me. So if I did a full combo, I can gain a lot more super meter. Like that. Gained almost a whole bar right there. Without Ferra cheering me on. I gain less than half a meter. So it is a significant buff to how much meter you are gaining, but it does rely on you hitting your opponent. And it has a drawback, unfortunately. If you are getting hit while Ferra is out, then you will lose meter. It says getting hit depletes super meter. So instead of gaining meter from getting hit by your opponent like you ordinarily would, you're going to do the exact opposite of that and lose meter. So if I have Liu Kang do his Dancing Dragon Armored move, we're going to call Ferra. We're going to try to hit him, but he's going to reversal us. As you can see, all that meter I'm gaining right there, it's gone now. This is really bad debuff. If you get hit while Ferra is on the field, you are messing up. And you cannot get her to go away while you're getting hit. So you can't do Lackey dismissal during the hit animations of your opponent smacking you. So if somebody reversals you, parries you, something like that, you're just going to have to hold all that meter you lose. Which is, it's just heinous, because you would be gaining the meter, and instead you're losing it, so you're kind of doubling your losses when you get hit with Ferra up. You're taking the damage, losing the meter, not gaining the meter. Now, it's also important to know that she can go into Let Me Ride and Lackey Dismissal, but she cannot do Let Me Ride if you're far away. I'm pressing up in Kameo here, and she will not get on my back because she's too far away. Even here, she's too far away. So you need to be right on Ferra, like this, in order for Let Me Ride to function. Lackey Dismissal, however, does function as an ambush just about anywhere on the screen, so you can be hanging out over here, and Lackey Dismissal as you're firing fireballs, or if you're worried about getting hit as you're swinging at your opponent, you realize you just did something punishable, you can Lackey Dismissal her as your punishable move is coming out so that you don't need to suffer the super meter loss when they reversal punish you. But now on to the main feature for Ferra. Main feature for Ferra is Torr Stance. Torr Stance has unique movement and unique moves that all come out of it. So this is Torr Stance, neutral Kameo. As you can see, Ferra hops on your back and her meter starts slowly depleting. Well, maybe not even slowly. Until it hits half, and then she hops off. And starts recharging at a reasonably quick rate after that. So she hops on your back. While you are doing this, you cannot block. You are in an offensive stance right now. And your movement all changes. Every single movement key changes. This is pressing back once. You do like almost a back dash, back sway thing. This is pressing forward. You do a forward dash. So now all of your movement is dashing. And your jumps turn into short hops. This is your jump. That's jump forward. That's jump back. Now, there are no short hops in this game, except for the ones that Ferra gives you access to. Now, you can short hop and do an overhead like that, and do something like what an instant air overhead is in other fighting games, which is not possible in this game. And it reminds me a lot of Mortal Kombat 11's short hop system. And Ferra only has one move that she can do in the Torr Stance. There's only one move you can do while airborne, and it's 1 or 2 for this big swinging overhead. That's 1. And that's 2. They're the same move. So you don't have a lot of options off the short hop. But if you press a button that doesn't fire in the short hop, you'll land and then immediately do the button as fast as your character is able. So if I wanted to do Ferra's low after a short hop, I can press 3, and then as soon as I land, the low comes out. So that's worth knowing. And this can also be powerful because she has a command grab, but we'll get to that soon. Now that I've covered the movement in Torr Stance, we're going to cover the buttons. And all of the buttons she has out of Torr Stance are good, I'm happy to say. So, hanging out in Torr Stance, we have Torr Stance 1. It is a mid that launches, as you can see. Now, everybody in the game will be able to combo from this. As you can see, that's an easy one with Shang. I'm sure there are much better combos you can find. And the cool thing about this mid, though, is not that it juggles your opponent. The cool thing is that this mid is plus unblock, plus 3. So, you hit somebody with that, you're point blank still. So if you do Ferra's mid and go into 2-4, this is a possibility. And you can do Ferra's... When your opponent is respecting all of the options you have out of this stance, you can press 1 to get plus frames. If your opponent is successfully fuzzy guard Ferra's options, which I find almost impossible because she has so many options, you can always press 1. The only thing 1 is not going to beat is armor, because this move is 22 frames. As you can see, going into Torr Stance takes up 12 frames. And then you're going to, in addition to that, spend the 22 frames for the swing. Now, I am very confident that you're not actually taking 34 frames to do this. I'm quite certain that if you press Torr Stance into your buttons immediately, that they cancel the Torr Stance animation a little bit early for you to swing earlier, but it does take more than 22 frames to do this if you don't have Ferra on your back already. So you should keep that in mind. It is hard to get this to connect mid-combo. In fact, if I'm remembering correctly, Shang has nothing that combos into it. So that's his normal route, doesn't combo. A shortened version still doesn't combo. Yeah, that doesn't combo. Forward 3, don't get a combo. Even forward 2, 3, forward 4, 3, no combo. No combo off of that. You can do back 2, 2, you're not getting a combo off of that because it's just a little bit too slow. So you're only doing this when your opponent is respecting the other options you have, and you want the plus frames. And unfortunately, plus 3 for Shang isn't incredible. You pretty much just get access to all of his pokes with plus 3. But you do have access to every poke, so you can low poke. You don't have to mid-jab. You can do his long-distance low poke. So if you're over here and you catch him with this move, because it doesn't move them very much, it doesn't have a lot of pushback, you can start going into your low like that. You don't have to jab. Plus 3 is just enough to get your other shenanigans off. But it's not enough for forward 3. This is 13 frames, so your opponent could still jab you out of this. So it's risky to go for something like that. So the other button, the next button is 2, and this is 2. As you can see, that is an overhead, which is safe on block and 20 frames. It is faster than the mid. So if our opponent gets hit, you can see it is a launcher. It is a very clean and easy to use launcher. You can get full combos off of this, and they deal good damage. Like, that's just a normal Shang combo. 35% is slightly lower than he would get if he had done a grounded string into it, but it's higher than he would get if it's off of 2-4, so it's a fantastic launcher. It is also worth knowing that this launcher is just fast enough to combo into other stuff, or off of other stuff, rather. Now, you can't get it off of forward 4, 1-2-1, but you can get it off of forward 4, 1-2. Forward 4, 1-2-1, no go. Forward 4, 1-2, you have to nail the timing of it. And I haven't had a lot of practice with Ferra, so I'm not nailing the timing. There it is. And you get a full, higher than normal damage combo off of that. 41% is better than even Shang's optimal, which I could have optimized that combo slightly more. Probably brought it up to about 42%. So, not only does this give you an overhead mix-up, if you do get the hit, you're getting more damage, and it is safe on block. However, it is not safe on up block. And in this case, I have to show you that by forcing my opponent to do it, because for some reason the game will not read this properly. There we go. My opponent tries to hit me with this. If I know how to block, there you go, punish. So you can even punish with solid mids. At this range, you can get full combo, high damage. If somebody up blocks the overhead, they're eaten. However, they need to know that you're doing the overhead and not the mid or the low. So I do not foresee this getting up blocked very often unless that is the only button you press. Now on to the next one is Torr Stance 3, which is that low right there. Torr Stance 3 is fantastic. As you can see, this is the fastest move yet at 17 frame startup. It is a low, and it's not just a low. It is a low that goes full screen. At full screen, it's actually very plus on block, like any projectile would be. And Ferra isn't a projectile, so much like Kano, or Sector's Teleport Punch, or Kano Ball, this will break all projectile immunities, Chameleon, Peacemaker, and Tremor, and... I'm sorry, not Tremor. Sub-Zero will all have projectile immunity moves for cameos or for their main fighter, and this will just punch right through them. So full screen low, plus on block, punches through your projectile immunity. Absolutely amazing. But that is not all that's amazing about this move. The next thing that's amazing about this move is that it's a launcher. It's like everything she does. So just like the other moves, we can go into a traditional Shang combo and get good damage. There we go, 357, just like all of those give you. And that is not all. If you'll believe it or not, from full screen, we still get the same exact combo. There is no need to change it up. The only thing we add is a dash. And we are still doing tons of damage. This is far better than any of the traditional Shang projectile combos. This, as you can see, is the traditional combo we would do. And that started from a mid and cost a bar. This starts from a low, costs no meter. Only costs 1 cameo use, which is halfway returned by the time we're done with the combo. And even if Ferra hits and we biff our combo somehow, we have a hit advantage of 63 there, which means our opponent is jailed into holding a mid-fireball if we want to do that. Or we could go into Ferra 4, which is our next move. Ferra 4 is this. That is an overhead projectile, but it is aimable. As you can see, we have close, and we have far, and we have normal. So, here's close. It is worth noting that close does not hit at point-blank range. If your opponent is in melee range of most of Shang's moves, you're not catching them with this. It is good, though, that Yo-Yo Throw is an overhead that does 50 damage. Now, 50 damage isn't a lot per projectile, but Ferra isn't a projectile. She breaks all of the projectile immunities with an overhead full-screen move. And the far version is, in fact, full screen. It's a hard knockdown, but it has tons of frame advantage. The frame advantage is variable depending on how far from your opponent you are, like most projectiles. There we had 49. 46 there, which is weirdly getting less frame advantage as we get further away. There we had 47. And this move is plus on block as well. There we go, it's plus 17 at that range. At full screen, what is it? 14. Yeah, this move has strange properties. I'm not sure if the frames are reading correctly, or if this is really just a weird property of the move. That these different distances have different frame data. It's possible. Either way, you have plenty of advantage, more than enough to frame trap into your mid ground skulls. So, if you feel like doing that, that's a frame trap, and it had an overhead in it, and it had a mix-up in it, because I could have gone low. Now, the mix-up is light, easy to see, not hard to deal with, but both the low and the overhead jail into, or frame trap, rather, into ground skull, which means that when we zone our opponent with a Ferra shot, then that means that we just get to do whatever we want after that. And if they get hit, if they get hit by the low, they're eating a full combo. And if they get hit by the overhead, they won't be eating a full combo, but they will be jailed into holding our ground skull on wake up. So the final move for this stance is not really pain and gain. We're going to go over pain and gain as its own weird thing in a second. So we're not going to talk about that. We'll talk about the cancel very briefly. Cancel, you just press the cameo button again. She gets off your back, you exit the stance. Now you can block, you can do all that happy stuff you wish you could do all the time. It does take about a quarter of the cameo bar to have her hop off your back without doing anything. When she's on your back, it doesn't cost cameo to get on your back, but it does cost cameo to use each of these moves. So each move from your back costs half a cameo meter, and if you press it immediately when she hops on your back, it will cost exactly one use of the cameo. If you wait at all, you see it'll burn part of the meter. So it burns a little bit, and now I can't use Ferra again right away. I have to wait for her to recharge. But if I just go straight into the move, I can get Ferra again right away. So you should keep that in mind when you're deciding how to use this stance, that if you hold the stance for any length of time, you are giving up access to Ferra for longer than if you just go straight into whatever move you want to go into. But the real move that we need to see is Torrn Up. During Torr Stance, now normally she has her throw, like every cameo. Her throw is exceptionally good. full screen, 18 frames. 18 frames happens to be 1 frame less than the startup of Shang's ground skull, which means that your opponent is, again, jailed into holding ground skull after getting thrown at full screen. So this is a very good throw for Shang. But that's not what the news is here. Everybody has a throw. Most of them are alright for Shang. The news is that when you're in Torr Stance, you can press throw. Now it does 10 less damage. But you'll notice that Ferra jumped off of you when you did that. He jumps a lot further than a throw in this game is able to catch. So here's where she'll jump from. That's me trying to throw you. No way it's ever hitting. That's me using Ferra. Gotcha. Now, if your opponent's advancing on you, you're going to catch him in situations like that. The other nasty thing is, at point-blank range, that is a 9-frame throw, which is a frame faster than any other throw in the game. So, depends on distance, because if you're further away, the throw takes more frames to fire. From right here, said it was 9 frames, active for 6. I'm not sure the active frame there. That one was only active for 1. So, you got to make sure you're reading the frame data correctly here, because if it's active, that means Ferra is in the air and will grab you if you're in her clutches. But it is not part of the startup. But it did take that long to catch your opponent, basically. If you whip entirely, she's active for 8 frames, which is crazy. Every throw in the game is active for 2, except for this one is active for 8. Which means that people are going to walk into this throw constantly. That is not all, folks. This throw cannot be teched. It is a command grab. We're going to have our opponent throw escape. Nope, no throw escape. If I grab them, nope, he says, not happening. Not happening. If Ferra grabs them, it's happening. That's a command grab. It is a high. Your opponent can crouch it, just like you can with almost every throw in Mortal Kombat, except for Raiko's enhanced command grab. But this is crazy. It is a very fast move. It is a throw. And it is part of the mix-up from all of Ferra's other shenanigans, right? We're going low, we're going overhead, we're going mid with plus frames, and now we're adding to the mix this very fast command grab, which is almost unreactable. I would describe this as unreactable, given the mental stack your opponent will be under every time you put Ferra on your back. So people are going to get hit by it constantly. It is only 10%, but it still leaves us with fantastic frame advantage at good distances. Where the frame advantage went up. We're now at 20 frames of advantage, which means that our opponent is jailed into our ground skulls, and probably they're not quite jailed into straight skulls, but they kind of have to hold it, because if they try to armor, straight skulls has multiple hits. So they're in trouble. You do not want to get hit with a Ferra throw with Shang on the screen. He's going to jail you into ground skull. He's going to toss another Ferra at you. He's going to, you know, if I do this, and then I go into ground skull. Like that. And you get hit, you're still eating the normal Shang full screen combo. You're still getting hit with all of the horrible stuff you don't want to get hit by. But if I do this and I go into more Ferra, you're in terrible shape over there. There's almost nothing you can do about this unless you have full screen armor. So somebody like Raiden will be okay. If you use this as a normal throw, it truly goes full screen. But if you use it as a command throw, it does not quite go full screen. As you can see, I can walk back. So Johnny Cage might be able to shadow kick you, depending on the specifics of what happened. But he might not be able to. And he might think he can. So this is all just wild, wild stuff. But we're going to move on to Pain and Gain. which is the final part of what's happening in Torr Stance. Pain and gain is this. Ferra stabs me. She stabs me again. And you can see that little fire on me. That is a damage buff. So, here's what happens when I do this combo normally. 111 damage. If I have one use of pain and gain on, 128. If I have two uses of pain and gain on, which is the maximum, just so you know, I do 148. Now, you're allowed to have Ferra stab you more than twice. She'll keep stabbing you as many times as you want her to stab you, but it only gives you the buff twice. As you can see, this doesn't actually cost any Kameo meter. It just costs the meter that she uses while doing it. So, you might think to yourself, that's kind of long animation. Why is this move ever going to be useful? I'm just going to get full comboed every single time I press this button. And you would be right if it didn't give you armor, but it does. So, you take a little bit of damage, you deal a ton of extra damage, and you have armor briefly. Now, the thing that's going to happen is that you're going to use this because all of Ferra's moves are single hit. When you have Ferra on your back and your opponent is on the ground, so you have Ferra, Oki, your opponent can armor every single time. Because all of these moves only hit once, armor will win. But if I armor, and then you use your armored move, if I use pain and gain to get armor, you use your armored move, you hit my armor, and then I hit you with Ferra. Now I've won the trade. And I have a damage enhancement on my combo, which means I am going to do just an absolutely atrocious amount of damage. This is a huge buff. Pain and gain, one pain and gain, makes Shang's B&B way better than it is normally. Do this. Now Shang's B&B just did almost 45%. Only this does 38. Almost 39. So you just gained like 5% damage off of your combo. And you'd had an armor move to juke your opponent with. So like if we did this, got hit by the armor, and then went into the overhead, do our B&B. Now instead of dealing 35 damage, or 350, we did 411. So we just got a 6% damage increase. And we got the combo for free because our opponent smacked our armor while we were doing pain and gain. And during their recovery frames, we punished them with Ferra's move. So, this buff lasts a good long time. It's not forever, but it's long enough to complete combos. We can sit here and watch until it goes away. You definitely have a little bit of time to find your hit and then do the move. It's definitely true that doing this just in neutral is going to result in you getting hit a lot. People who have any string, most strings will break the armor on this because the animation is long. It's only one hit of armor, and you do lose that hit of armor even if they don't hit the armor. It will go away before the animation is complete. So it functions a lot like a parry, where if your opponent hits you during the armor phase, you probably win and get your full combo. But if your opponent hits you immediately after the armor phase of it, but before the animation is complete, then you got hit. And that's how it is. Now, there are some people for whom this is not going to work. Liu Kang is actually a perfect example of somebody who it's not going to work against, because his armored move has multiple hits. So if we did something like tell Liu Kang to do his enhanced damping dragon, we would go, we'll do a plus on block move. Maybe not. We'll do as you can see, I did actually armor his first hit, but because he has multiple hits, I'm going to get hit. This is true of every single character that has multiple hits in their armored move. So Liu Kang, Shang, Baraka, and a handful of others are going to be able to armor and beat every single option that you have at a Ferra Stance. But there are characters whose armor is only a single hit, like Johnny Cage. And Johnny Cage is a perfect example. If he shadow kicks you, and I've tested this, if he shadow kicks the armor, you are guaranteed the throw punish, the command grip. Even though that's the fastest armor move in the whole game, you are guaranteed a punish. It is not a full combo punish in his case, but in almost every case except for Johnny Cage, you get a full combo punish, as long as they don't have a multi-hitting armored move. So, if you think your opponent's going to armor on your Oki game, this is what you do. You do pain and gain, and then hit them with Ferra for just just huge damage off of your combos. But if you have both pain and gains, which honestly, getting both pain and gain buffs seems like an almost impossible task to me. But if you have it somehow, your B&B goes up to 51% from 38, so you just added 12%. This is a huge, huge buff. It's very worth your while, especially because you can use it like a parry in a lot of scenarios. Maybe not a lot of scenarios, but in the most important one, which is your opponent's going to armor through you. And Shang often struggles with armored attacks. He doesn't have good answers to armor. He doesn't have a lot of multi-hitting buttons. He doesn't have any multi-hitting buttons other than straight skulls. So this is a way that you can basically parry armored attacks, at least some of them. You're still going to have trouble in some matches. People like Liu Kang are still going to give you trouble because he has that armored wake-up that hits multiple times. He's still going to be able to jip you out of a lot of things. But people like Johnny, who love to armor wake-up, people who like Quan Chi, who love to armor wake-up, are going to get beaten by this every single time. So the final thing to consider about Ferra, and the one that really brings this whole thing together, is air Torr Stance. We went over improvised flail here, the jumping move. Actually, there was something we did not talk about with the jumping move, though, which is that this is also a combo starter. Every single move that Ferra has, except for her overhead projectile, is a combo starter. So, if you hit with that overhead or the other overhead, either way, up block, it makes both of them punishable, but you will get a full combo either way. So airborne or on the land, you have access to mix-ups. Now, air Torr Stance is a new way to get into Torr Stance other than just pressing Kameo. This is what happens if you press Kameo. You have that whole animation. Big 12-frame animation, kind of cumbersome, makes you wonder when you're really going to get to use this. Air Torr Stance is different. That's an ambush. You do it in the air. It doesn't steal frames from you. You do it in the air and then press your button. You immediately cancel into Ferra's big overhead launcher. If you do it in the air and then press a grounded button, you get the grounded thing as soon as you land. And you might think to yourself that this isn't a huge deal, but it will catch your character when he is airborne, no matter how he got airborne. So this is a thing. Your ground spikes have you do a backflip. As long as you're in the air, Ferra can grab you. So I cancel ground spikes into Ferra. As you can see, using this ambush version of air Torr Stance costs half of a bar of Ferra. But that's a little bit deceptive. So here's Ferra with half a bar. I used it. It cost half a bar, but I still got to fire my move. So we're going to see, here's Ferra, and here's Torr Stance Ferra. I'm not able to just hang out in Torr Stance, but as long as I just press my button immediately, I can do this with only half of a cameo bar. So you can have one use of your cameo and still do Ferra Stance, which means you can use her to zone, end the combo with ground spikes. As you're doing the backflip from ground spikes, she will cancel you out of it, and then you can do any mix-up you want. You can do your armor, pain and gain for the parry, to stop their armor move if they were responding well, which armor is usually the correct option for them. You can do the overhead from the jump, which comes out immediately. So if they block, you have a crazy fast overhead low mix-up. So if you do this, that is a super fast overhead low, or low overhead. Many people are going to get hit by this. A lot of people get hit by ground spikes in general, but you're worried about using it because it is negative 28 on block, and most people can punish this even with the giant distance you created. So you could enhance it. Now it's only negative 14, and most people can't punish that, but a couple can, and you definitely lost your turn. This, you didn't even lose your turn anymore. That was negative 1, and I don't have to do that. I can go into Air Ferra, and then into the +3 mid, and not lose my turn at all. I could go Air Ferra low. I lost my turn, but if I hit you with the low, I get a full combo. And I can go Air Ferra into a grounded overhead, right? Like that. And I'm only negative 2, and the grounded overhead takes longer than the first overhead, so the correct schema of blocking here would now be low ground spikes, overhead during the jump, low once I land, then high after the low once I land, in order to fuzzy guard that correctly. But that's not all we can do. We can go like that into a command grab, which is 9 frames. So now, the correct fuzzy guarding for this is almost impossible, because it's low for ground spikes, high while I'm in the air, then neutral crouch when I land, then low block when I land, then high block when I land, is what you would have to do in order to successfully block everything. That is way too much mental stack. Nobody is successfully blocking these mix-ups. You are getting hits with this. Once your opponent starts correctly blocking this, then you stop doing that and go into, great, now we're doing command grab. And now we're at zoning distance again, and even if I use my whole meter, I can zone you for a little bit and wait for Ferra to recharge. Or I go, you know, I think you're going to be a sucker for the low this time. We're going for the low. If you get hit, it's a full combo. If you block, then I'm safe. And ground spikes just became safe in general, because this cancels the animation. So this is just mind-blowingly good. Every single time you do anything, you just go into ground spikes Air Ferra, and whatever you do, like, you're almost certain to get a hit. If you don't get a hit and your opponent blocks correctly, you're not in any grave danger. It is technically possible for them to up-block both overheads, including the jump version. So after ground spikes, they could up-block and get a full combo punish from the jumping version. If your opponent ever does that even one time, just stop using the air version, because you don't have to use the air version. In fact, you're more threatening once you land, and as long as they respect the air version, now the command throw is going to do more damage, because you'll hit them with the throw punish off of an up block. So once they start up blocking, you do this, and they just take way too much damage for getting thrown, and now you have a 20 hit advantage where you start zoning them again with your ground skulls, and everything is just a nightmare for your opponents. Every single time you have any cameo meter, it's a nightmare for your opponent. If you have at least one charge of your cameo, you can always do this. If you have both charges, it will consume both charges, but if you only have one charge, it'll only consume the one charge. So it's a little bit deceptive in the way that it's priced. Because if you're doing stuff like this, and then you're doing that, it's still possible, right? So there's basically no time where your opponent doesn't need to be terrified about this, especially because once you're done comboing them, you're going to zone them for a little bit and let the Kameo recharge. I think that this makes her almost certainly Shang's best Kameo. The only thing she doesn't give him that he wants is a way to deal with armor reliably. In some matchups, she does deal with armor by using Pain and Gain to functionally parry other people's armored moves. But in matches like Liu Kang, she is not actually stopping him from armoring. So in the scenario presented, where we do this, or we do this, or we do this, right? Liu Kang can actually armor out of every single option, even if we did that, which would be our way of normally beating armor. So, the thing is, though, in matches where people have multi-hitting armor, we can actually just do this. Most people's armor won't be able to reach this far. They'll whiff, and then we'll hit them. So, we didn't exactly fix the armor problem, but we do have an answer to the armor problem. Even in matches where people have multi-hitting, every once in a while you're going to run into some kind of cursed situation. If you're in the corner, for instance, you actually can't create the distance you need. So then somebody like Liu Kang has a really powerful armored option, and somebody like Baraka, right? Like they're going to be able, and Shang himself, if they have you cornered, you're not going to be able to do this. But that's pretty much the only time you can't do this, is if they have meter for the armor, and they have you cornered, and you're starting a block string. And because of this mix-up, the chip damage issue, like normally Shang has pretty good chip damage because you go into spinning spikes and then call a Kameo to make yourself plus on block at the end of spinning spikes, and you get pretty good chip damage, sometimes upwards of 20% if you're willing to make a really long combo, which is fantastic. It can kill people for sure. But flawless blocks against Shang are actually pretty easy to do. All of his strings have pretty big openings for them. That string has an opening for a flawless block after, I think, the second hit, maybe the third. And this has an opening for a flawless block. So, high-level opponents often do this to me, where they will flawless block the string from Shang. They'll flawless block in there and stop me from dealing significant chip damage. And mix-ups are just obviously better than chip damage anyway. I'd rather combo somebody than deal chip damage every single day of the week. So, having fantastic mix-ups means that we don't need to worry about the chip damage thing anymore. The mix-ups functionally also replace pressure, because we don't need to create long block strings when we just get hits. And there is pretty much no way for many characters to avoid getting hit in this scenario. They're just guessing. That's all they're doing. They might guess right every once in a while, and that's going to happen. But guessing right doesn't even get them punishes. It just lets them take their turn back. So I'm not worried about them guessing right. And this also just gives us great combo pathing. We can now do forward 3 shenanigans. We can do forward 3 into the low. You can see that was a combo. So now we don't need to take risks. Normally forward 3 into ground skull can lead to a full combo, but it's a risk. No more risk. Now we just do this low. It's safe on block. And if we know they're going to block, and they've been blocking the low, we just do the overhead instead. And we have the mid. Go. See, that actually combos. So you can do an overhead or a low off of forward 3, thanks to the Torr Stance. That gives you a full combo for more damage than the forward 3 combo could normally deal. Normally the forward 3 combo is about 350 something, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, just under 350. And with this, we go... Takes a little getting used to it, the overhead in particular, to give the dash, but... Micro dash there. We go up to 389 off of the forward 3 combo, and there's 0 risk to us. And if we know that they keep blocking, we just go into the mid that's plus on block and turn our forward 3 into just an incredibly threatening button. Now we have a giant button that goes like default start distance, like round start distance button, that it has 2 safe launchers, overhead low mix launchers. They can be fuzzy guarded, but they're both safe. And a plus on block option if our opponent's consistently blocking it. Like, they can armor out of it. They can. But a lot of people get hit just by big normal. Big normal hits lots of people, not a secret. Now, her timings on combos are a little bit funky. Like, each of her moves has its own timing that you have to... that you're stuck in the animation for, so... It's a little different to do the low than it is to do the overhead. Like, you have to time your buttons differently, and you have a micro dash in the overhead that you don't have in the low. In a way, it actually makes your combo pathing more fun, because you have more variety. So, I think that she is almost certainly Shang's best cameo, and she creates mind games and mix-ups and zoning, opens up great zoning options, has amazing combo pathing, opens up new strings for combo possibilities. We can do stuff like this now. Our back 2-2 has become a decent string now because they can combo into that low. So now, even though it's mid-high, which is frustrating, it used to be mid-high and then a low, but the low doesn't lead to anything. So now we can do mid-high, low, but the low actually gives us a combo. It is possible to combo there. I just haven't gotten good at it yet. And it's important to know that we can go into this air stance at the end of combos too. We're just going to start ending our combos with ground spikes. So when we do this, instead of ending with injection, like we often would, we're going to end with ground spikes and go into Ferra. Just like that. And we can give ourselves further mix by doing this, and then during that ground spikes animation, because we know we hit, we could just transform into old or young. And if we're young, we have our forward 3 overhead. But if we're old, we have our forward 3 low. Our forward 3 low now leads to combos. And our forward 3 overhead can give us the Ferra Stance. It doesn't give us a combo, right? But see, we can't catch him with the big overhead and juggle him. But we now have a free mix-up because we can go like this. In fact, that's so good that we have like a true meaty there that's better than a meaty. And because now Ferra has been fully used, then we're going to use Injection to throw our opponent full screen, give us time to zone and recharge our cameo, so that we can get back into that range or back into that mix-ups that we like, once we're close. So, we're just going to start ending our combos differently. In fact, we can go so quickly on that we can mess it up, so we have to time our buttons a little bit. We go into Ferra Stance, time it so that when our opponents wake up, we have big meaty moves to catch them. Or use our pain and gains if we think they're going to delay wake up or armor. We go into pain and gain. And now we just did crazy damage. So Ferra also gives us 150 health, which is great for Shang. Our other cameos that are ideal for us, like Kano, and Kano takes away some health, and Kano is really the ideal cameo. After playing more with Sector, I think there are great things about him, but the fact that he can't answer armor and otherwise functions very similarly to Kano ends up making me think that he's just not a great cameo option. He gets more combo damage, but that combo damage comes at the price of always having to press your cameo button and a slow recharge, so he's less available than we need him to be. I think Ferra is very available. She gives us incredible mix-ups. She gives us incredible combo damage. And she just opens up everything that we want our character to do. We have command grabs, overheads, lows, they all launch. We have projectiles that break projectile immunity and launch and give us full combos. We're living the dream out here. So, those are my thoughts on Ferra. Go out, play some Ferra. If you have thoughts on Ferra, things you want to share, please comment below. Give me a subscribe if you're looking forward to more Mortal Kombat content. I try to post sets weekly, and whenever there's something relevant, I try to post a guide. I have full guides to how to form steal against every opponent in the game, except for Homelander and Takeda. Those guides are coming soon. I delayed Homelander because I knew that he had a bunch of moves that were obviously not functioning as intended when he came out, so I wanted to make sure I gave you a fully functioning guide that would last. And Takeda is just new enough that I don't know his routes yet, but I will be finding those and I will be posting them, so subscribe and tune in for that.